Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. It's really good to see you. You know, around this season of time, it's Valentine's Day, and my anniversary is coming up in April 27th. We'll be celebrating 27 years together in marriage, my husband Andy and I. Woohoo. But, I'd like to share with you in this video our love story, basically, of Andy and I. 27 years, it seems like these days it's kind of rare to hear people staying married together with the same person for that long, with the divorce rate, being so high. Is just kind of seems pretty rare. So I would like to share with you, and I hope that you may be encouraged listening to my story in some way. You can relate one way or another, and that you can leave today after hearing my words that with some hope, encouragement, fight the good fight of faith, and to continue on in your the holy institute that God has created in marriage. I met my husband Andy when I was 13 years old, when I was in 8th grade. My family went to his this big church that he went to called Young Night Church in LA. And when I met him, my sister, my friends, all of us, we were starry-eyed. We all had a crush on Andy at that time. He was a very friendly Asian guy, funny, tall, dark, and handsome. And, so we were just all had a crush on him. But little did I know, years later, when I was 20 years old, that I would end up dating him. And when he asked me to date him, I was kind of a little puzzled at that time because we were just friends for so long. And he was always a friend of my family, so he kind of came by throughout the years once in a while just to kind of keep in touch. So my husband Andy and I, we dated for 4.5 years before we got married. And I would like to share with you that it wasn't all that blissful when we were dating. I would love to say that, in fact, the first year was wonderful. He was full of surprises and sent me flowers to my work every month and this and that, and it was a lot of fun. And I was 20 years old. He was 22 years old at that time. And I remember thinking to myself when I was 20, I said, the next boyfriend I would date, I want him to be marriage potential. So that was my mindset, and that was also the same mindset for Andy. We kind of had that in common. So we were dating for the first year and a half. It was pretty superficial. We were young and we were just light dating. And it was hard for 4.5 years because his family didn't like me or seem to accept or approve of me. His parents, his 2 brothers and sister-in-laws. I felt like I was being very judged. They didn't know my heart. I thought it was unfair. I told Andy, I think I'm a good person. I don't know why they don't like me. And they just nitpick on certain things about me. I wasn't good enough for him or their family. I don't know. That was my impression. I couldn't speak Korean. I wore too much black. They just nitpick everything. So it was a living nightmare for me for 4.5 years. I just always felt the coldness, the wall. I felt like an outcast. And I supported Andy of going to all his family gatherings for the holidays or birthdays or Mother's Day, because he asked me as his girlfriend to come along. And I remember praying to God driving on the way to a family gathering, please God, be with me because I feel very uncomfortable, like an outcast. I can't speak Korean. And God just helped me through. And that started to build up my faith in God, my journey of God and my relationship with Andy. But after, when Andy kept sharing with me all the things that his brothers or mother would just bombard him with, to break up with Lisa while you're dating her, it was just really hard. So finally I had it up to here. I said, forget you, Andy, forget your family, because I know if we were to get married, I'm not just marrying you, but I'm marrying your family also. So I just broke up with him after 1.5 years of dating. And I thought that was the end. So I was scheduled to go to Disneyland with a friend the very next day. And when I came back home late at night at 1 o'clock in the morning, I saw his car parked out in front of my house. He was waiting for me. And I must say that is when he won me over. He proved to me his love. He loved me inside and out. He told me, just trust me. I know my parents. When the time is right, we will get married. And I was just in tears, crying. I said, it's easy for you to say, but this has been very hard and difficult for me. And he just said, just trust me. So that's when I took the step of faith, with my faith in God and my faith and belief in Andy, my husband. I trusted him. So then, after that, around that same time, I rededicated my life to God. I was brought up as a Christian all my life, but I didn't really have an intimate relationship with knowing who God is. So I went to visit my sister in Michigan, and I was just in awe with God's beauty. His spirit spoke to me in every sense. And when I came back from the trip, Andy said, oh my gosh, you've changed. I was glowing inside. God's spirit was just alive, well, activating in me. I was just really rededicated my life to God at that time. And at that same time, Andy was going to Fuller Seminary to go into the ministry. So at that same time, after a year and a half of dating, God became in the center of our relationship. And that was a glue. That was a key that helped our relationship to really mature and grow and blossom in a very good, healthy way. So finally, after 4.5 years of dating him, he surprised me, and he came to my salon, my hair salon where I work at, and he surprised me with a grand romantic proposal. He rented a white limousine. It was his 26th birthday. He rented a tuxedo, brought me red dozen roses, had somebody videotape, rolled out the red carpet. Let's say he sang, and we danced together, the whole shamil. And everybody at the salon and all the customers, they were just cheering on. It was a really great presentation that he did, and I was very happily surprised. So 6 months later after that, we got married April 27th, 1991. And it was wonderful. We got married at his parents' church. Their parents were an elder and high positions. My husband was a youth leader at that time, and my father was also in the ministry. So we had like 850 people, I'm not kidding you, at my wedding. It was just beyond crazy. We estimated, I think we had about 850 people. So thankfully, we were able to have the reception in the fellowship hall, and there was no drinking or dancing, so that kind of helped to save some cost. But it was a beautiful wedding. And after my honeymoon, when I came back from the honeymoon, excuse me, let me rewind for a little bit. When Andy said, when we get married, there is a chance that we're going to have to live together with my parents because they really need us to help him out financially because they were having business struggles. And I said, oh, wow, live with your parents? They don't even like me. I can't imagine living with them. And I said, gosh, for how long? He says, I don't know. It could be 5 months. It could be 5 years. Tears just started streaming down my eyes. The thought of 5 years of living with the parents that did not like me. I said, okay, God, I don't know. We'll see. Life is so unknown and uncertain. And I remember asking my father, Andy said that we might have to live with his parents. What do you think, after I get married? My father paused. He says, you know what, Lisa? I know you as my daughter. I believe that you can do it with your personality. You're open, you're flexible. I said, oh, really, Dad? Okay. So another step of faith. I just trusted in God. And so I agreed. So I went in with my eyes wide open into this marriage with Andy. And so then we got married. And then when we came back from the honeymoon, going back to that story, we lived with his parents and in their house in Long Beach. And I was so happily surprised when his father said, he grabbed all 4 of us, Andy's mother, father, Andy, and myself, the 4 of us. We held hands, huddled in a circle, and his father wanted to pray because we're just newlyweds. And that was the first time I just felt the acceptance, the warmth, the love, and the embrace from his parents after 4.5 years of torture, because I was just internally struggling with not feeling accepted into his family. And I just cried. I just couldn't believe I finally felt accepted. And I eventually became their favorite daughter-in-law. How ironic is that, right? So we lived together with his parents for 8.5 years. And it was pretty tough, but I think it was a blessing in disguise because I couldn't speak Korean very well, and his parents did not know how to speak English well. So we had a language barrier, which I think kind of helped out. But still, you know, we didn't have our privacy, and it was pretty tough. If you want to hear more about living with my manipulating in-laws, there's a old video that I made of that you can check out. So that was kind of difficult, and that did put a lot of strain in one sense or another to Andy himself as their son and into our marriage in a certain sense. Andy's the youngest of 3 sons, and they really had him wrapped around his finger. They knew how to manipulate Andy, make him feel guilty, and make him feel less than a person in a certain sense, you know, as an adult. Andy's mother and father would still to this day mention to him, you know, we were going to abort you when you were a baby. And what person wants to hear that? You know, you feel so devalued as a person if any parents was to say that. And they just knew how to make Andy feel guilty and manipulate him. So through living with him, I would just see his manhood start to kind of go down, his self-confidence, all of that. And I would witness this with Andy's mother. He just emasculated Andy's father down to the gutter. It was really pathetically sad to see this, to witness this. And when I see her complaints all the time, venting out to Andy all the time, and he would listen it over and over again, day in, day out. She was very controlling and all these things. Her negative spirit was in the house. You know, eventually it can get to a person. And the power of a mother to their children, wow, it is beyond crazy. To hear your mother's voice in your head, it can do a number to the person, either for the positive or it can be very destructive. It is really, really, you know, some of these criminals, they all had crazy mothers. Check out that movie on Netflix. What is it called? Criminal Minds? No, Mind Hunter. All these criminals, this FBI back in the 1970s, did their cases with all the common criminal cases, studies, that all these serial killers had crazy mothers. So that is the impact where actually Andy's mother had on Andy too. And it was very, very sad. And let me remind you, again, I met Andy when I was in 8th grade. He was in 9th grade. He was this happy-go-lucky, funny person, full of life, carefree. And when I start to see him change throughout the years, I wonder where he went to. It was the influence of his mother. And I don't know if it was just the Korean culture. A lot of parents seem to do that, because he would mention, you think my mom is bad, you should have seen her mother. She was worse. Very negative, very manipulative, very unhappy, very controlling. So that did do a number in our marriage. And it was a struggle. It was tough. And it was hard because I saw Andy go through depression and just going through a lot of his own emotional issues. And there's only so much a wife can do or say, because the power of a mother's word is so strong. So it was hard, and we went through a lot of hard times, up and down, good times, so many different scenarios. But I would just love to just brag in the sense where hang in there, fight the good fight of faith. We're celebrating our 27-year anniversary. God is so good. And we're going to Paris. What a blessing.